Welcome, Udo.
Wow. Hi. Nice introduction. I didn't know I was that good.
Yes, well, surprise, you're that good. So, we're gonna jump right in there. So, I guess the first question is, you know, what is the seed oils? What makes that different than other kinds of oils, and why is it healthy? Hopefully, it doesn't take up all my questions right there. But
Well, actually, if you listen to the grapevine in the health industry, they're saying that seed oils are bad and you shouldn't use them, and omega-6s are bad and you shouldn't use them. And there have been people saying that. I've been doing this work for 45 years, and there have been people saying that for 45 years. And there have been books out every once in a while. Right now, there's quite a few books out on it. Well, there have always been people saying that, and not a single one of the authors who takes that position has ever talked to me. And I'm the fat man, right? I'm not hiding. I've been out there. Not a single one of them has ever talked to me. And what they have done is, and how what I'm doing is different, is they read some of the literature, but they never looked to what's behind it. And what happened to me was one day I was reading some research, and it said omega-6 is an essential nutrient. You have to have it to live and be healthy. You can't make it. You have to get it from outside. If you don't get enough, you lose your health, and your health deteriorates, and you get deficiency symptoms, and they get worse with time. And if you don't get enough long enough, you die. So this is like really important stuff. And then the third part was, if you are going down because you're not getting enough omega-6, but before you die, you're bringing enough back into your diet, then all the problems that come from not getting enough are reversed, because life knows what to do, provided we take responsibility at our mouth to make sure all of the essential building blocks land in our body. And the last part of it is, you can't call a nutrient essential, according to the researchers, until they have found at least one necessary reaction in the body that requires that nutrient, and without which that reaction cannot take place. So this is a very precise definition, right? So omega-6 is an essential nutrient, along with omega-3, and along with 9 essential amino acids and 13 vitamins and 18 minerals. Those are the 42 essential nutrients. The very next study I read about, at that time, this was a long time ago, the very next study I read said omega-6 gives you cancer and kills you. And my head exploded. It's like, wait, I have to have it so it can kill me, right? I have to have it. It's essential. And then it gives me cancer and kills me. I must be missing something. You can't have it both ways. And it was that question, that contradiction that exploded my head, that made me look deeper about how oils are made. And I found out that when oils are made, oils, by the way, there are most sensitive nutrients. They're damaged by light, by oxygen, by heat. Omega-6 is pretty sensitive. Omega-3 is 5 times more sensitive. Very easy to damage them. So they need to be made with the most care of any of our nutrients, but we actually give them the least care. We fry things in them. So when I looked at how oils are made, I found out that they treat them, because they want a long shelf life for molecules that by nature have a short shelf life. So they have to do something to get that long shelf life. They treat it with sodium hydroxide, then we treat it with phosphoric acid, then they bleach it with bleaching clays, then it gets rancid and smells bad. So then they heat it to frying temperature for 30 minutes to deodorize the oil. Then you end up with a colorless, odorless, tasteless oil. You have a 2 or 3 year shelf life on it, but it's been damaged about 1%. And that doesn't sound like much. So, and I actually talked to the American Oil Chemists Society, and I asked them why they do this process when it damages the oil. I'd been poisoned by pesticides, so I was looking for health, and the idea that the oils are damaged didn't sit well with me, right? So he says, well, we do it because we can get rid of half of the pesticides in the oil. Well, at that point, I didn't even know there were pesticides in oils. But I didn't like that answer. That was not, what do you mean? The other half of the pesticides stay in the oil? I've been poisoned by pesticides. This is not looking good. So I said, why don't you start with organically grown seeds? Then you don't have a pesticide problem. And he didn't, he was really silent for a long time. And then he got mad. He says, I don't know what you're squawking about. It's only 1% damaged. And then I thought, well, maybe I'm overreacting. So I said, okay, let me do the math. If I have a tablespoon of oil that has been damaged 1% by the processing that industry does to oils, how many damaged molecules am I going to have in that 1 tablespoon of oil? And I ask people that. I ask you that question. Give me a number. What do you think? How many damaged, 1% damaged, 1 tablespoon of oil?
How many molecules are in?
How many damaged molecules?
How many molecules were in there in the first place?
Well, yeah, I can't tell you that. See, because most people don't know how big molecules are.
Right.
So we're guessing. So we're all guessing. And that's why I'm doing this, because you're in the same position. Everybody's is in who doesn't know how to figure out. So you're guessing. So I have to guess.
Yeah. I'm gonna say, just so you have a good impact, I'm gonna say 1,000 molecules.
Okay, good. 1,000 molecules has 1,000 has 3 zeros, right?
Yes.
And the actual number has 19 zeros. 60 quintillion damaged molecules in a tablespoon of an oil that's 1% damaged. And that's more than 1 million damaged molecules that never existed in nature, that don't fit properly into the biochemical architecture in your cells. More than 1 million of those damaged molecules for every one of the body's 60 trillion cells. You think that's not going to make a difference to how your cells work?
And that's in a tablespoon, you said?
In 1 tablespoon.
Wow.
And people use 2 to 4. And then if you fry it, you got to multiply that number by another 3 to 6 times. Plus there's pesticides in it. Plus there's plastic in it, because they put them in plastic bottles, and oil swells plastic, and plastic leaches into oil quicker than into water. And when I found all of this out, 60 quintillion damaged molecules, I said, I can't get healthy on oils like that. We should make them with health in mind. And what does that take? And then I developed a method for doing that. You have to protect the oils from light, oxygen, and heat damage from the time they're in the seed through the pressing, the filtering, the settling, the filling, until they're in a brown glass bottle with a box around it to cut the light out, nitrogen flushed, in the fridge in the factory. So I developed that in 1986, and we started making flaxseed oil in 1987, because flaxseed oil is the richest source of omega-3s that's easily available to us. And 99% of the population, said the research, does not get enough omega-3s for optimum health. And omega-3s are also essential. So I thought, oh my God, if we could make them with health in mind, so they're not damaged, and we could bring them back to the population, oh my God, we could help almost everybody. And that became like a mission from God, right? Oh my God, we get to help so many people. And the charge, the enthusiasm that came out of being able to do that is what drove that project. Now, there are people who say that I'm in bed with Archer Daniel Midlands. No, I moved in with my mother when I was 41 years old to do the research, write the book, and get all of that done, because we had no money, and we started totally on a shoestring, but with huge enthusiasm because of all the good we could do for people's health. So it's a little history there.
Good to know. So now, T. Colin Campbell, who is a bionutritional researcher, talks about omega-3s and omega-6s, and said that the natural state of food would be usually a 1-to-1 ratio between omega-3s and omega-6s. And while omega-6s are essential. We can't produce them ourselves, and we need them for biological functions. We our current diet produces a ratio somewhere around 1 to 30 omega-3s to omega-6s.
Yeah.
So does your oil help with that balance? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. Of course, I knew that problem. So they're both essential. And over in our food habits over the past since 1850, we've decreased omega-3 intake to 1/6 of what people got in 1850. And we've doubled, tripled, quadrupled, maybe even 10 times our intake of omega-6s. Okay, so the ratio is off. So the damage is the first part that we need to pay attention to, right? Second part is the ratio is off. Why is that? Because omega-3 and omega-6 essential fatty acids are converted into derivatives with hormone-like regulatory functions in all our cells. And they're converted into those by a system of enzymes. And they both are converted by the same enzyme system. And what happens in that case, if you get too much of one, it'll crowd out the other from the enzyme system. And then the other can't get its work done. And if you get too much of the other, it'll crowd out the one. So you need to make sure that you get the ratio right so that both of them can get converted in that system and get turned into those hormone-like regulating derivatives. So yeah, we addressed that the ratio should be 1-to-1. That's just a theory that came out of the lab, because actually when you look at the food supply, if you're close to the poles, there's more omega-3 than omega-6s in the foods. And then you go toward the equator, you end up with more omega-6s, then you more omega-9s, which are monounsaturated, and then in the tropics, you get more saturated fats. And that's because omega-3s are warming. So you want warming oils in cold countries, in cold climates, and the saturated fats are cooling, and you want cooling in the tropics. So the oils help to do that, right? So the idea that it's a 1-to-1 ratio is actually it's completely absurd. But there is if you look at the diets, the highest diet in omega-3 was 2.5-to-1. And then it changes in the tropics, it's different, right? So what we did is we decided, because we've changed our intake so much, we decided to make the oil twice as rich in omega-3 as omega-6. And that helps you with the balance. And what we say to people is, well, you shouldn't be using the damaged oils, not because there's something wrong with omega-6, but because there's something wrong with damaging them, which is what the industry does and which is what we do in the frying pan. So we say, get off those oils, get on omega-6s that are also made with health in mind. So what we do is we have omega-3 and omega-6 in the ratio that favors omega-3, because most people don't get enough, and has omega-6s also made with health in mind. Both need to be made with health in mind because both are easily damaged by light, oxygen, and heat. So yeah, we addressed that issue. And if you take flaxseed oil, actually the ratio is not good. I became omega-6 deficient on flaxseed oil. Flaxseed oil has 4 times more omega-3 than omega-6. So that's too high. I got dry eyes, skipped heartbeats, arthritis-like pain in finger joints, and thin papery skin. Classic omega-6 deficiency symptoms. Fixed it by taking more omega-6s to bring the balance back. And that's why we made the blend, because I want people to get healthy, and flax oil can actually make them deficient in omega-6s. So we we did that, and the blend is twice as rich in omega-3, and both omega-3 and omega-6 are made with health in mind.
And what about having flax meal versus flax oil? What would be the difference there?
Well, if you take the flax seed, first of all, if you're going to eat flax seeds, and there's no reason why you shouldn't do that, You have to blend the seeds because the cover is so hard that if you swallow the seeds whole, they'll literally go through you and you can plant them and they will grow. Because the flax seed is protecting itself because it's trying to make more flax plants, right? So, so you have to blend it if you want to get the benefits. If you get flax meal, there are two kinds. One is just flaxseed blended up. And the other one, flax meal, is flaxseed that the oil has been squeezed out of, which will still have some residual oil in it. So I'm not sure which one you're talking about. But if you eat the flax seeds, obviously you're getting a whole food. So there's minerals in there, and there's protein in there, and there's oil in there, and there's some vitamins in there, and then there's some lignans in there. Lignans have very powerful anti-inflammatory, antiviral, antifungal, antibacterial, anti-cholesterol, anti-cancer, anti-autoimmune, anti-diabetes functions. So flaxseed is a good seed to eat. But if you can't get enough oil from seed, and that's because I'm anticipating the next question, right? Because people would say, well, why don't you just eat the food? That's the way nature made it, and nature's is obviously for optimum health. Well, no, it's not. Nature's mandate is not longest life. It's not optimum health. Nature needs you to be healthy enough to grow up, healthy enough to reproduce, healthy enough to be there for your kids till your kids don't need you anymore. And when your kids don't need you anymore, nature doesn't need you anymore either. So then nature will recycle you. How does nature recycle you? You never get optimum health. And so what happens is, as your machinery slows down, as you age, you will check out sooner if your diet is suboptimum than if it was optimum. And so I thought, and so somebody explained to me, oh no, it should be just whole foods. So I said, okay, I'll do an experiment on myself. I want to find out if I can get enough oil out of just eating seeds. And I was eating 5 tablespoons of flaxseed and 3 tablespoons of sesame and sunflower seeds to get the same ratio that we have in the oil. And I could only do those 8 tablespoons a day. Well, even in summer when I need less oil, because less of it is burnt for heat than in winter, even in summer in California, I could not keep my skin from getting dry by eating 8 tablespoons of seeds. And I couldn't eat more seeds than that because flax oil absorbs about 6 times its volume of water. So 8 tablespoons is a pretty big meal. I couldn't do it. So then I say, okay, eat the seeds as much as you want. You might be able to get your skin soft and velvety. I can't. Some people may, right? And that's good. But if your skin is still dry from when you eat the seeds, well, then add oil to the foods and get it to optimum. Why skin? Because skin gets the oils last and loses them first. And the reason for that is the inner organs, every cell needs the essential fatty acids. But the inner organs have super important functions: liver, heart, brain. And so nature gives priority to the inner organs. And only if you have enough for them do they make it to the skin. And then in the skin, they will form a barrier in the skin against the loss of moisture. Omega-3 and 6 together do that. And then you end up with soft, smooth, velvety skin, and you don't need to put gunk on it. So we measure optimum intake by how the skin feels. In winter, you need more than in summer, because in winter, you burn more of it for energy. It's not just all turned into hormones and tissue structure issues. And so I use about 4 tablespoons in winter, 2 or 3 in summer to get the skin feel. If your skin is dry, you need more oil. You need more of the right kind of oil, and you need the balance between omega-3 and 6, because they do that that barrier. They make that barrier. They do it together. If you only get one, you lose that. If you get only the other, you lose it. So they need to be together in the right ratio to do that as well.
So when you say oil,
Yeah.
is that the same as fatty acids? Like, so people, like the inside the plant itself, there are fatty acids. When people think of oil, they primarily think of what's extracted from the plant
Yeah.
into a glass or plastic jar that we have sitting, I guess, getting rancid on our shelves.
Mhm.
Or is it oil in the food, as opposed to just fatty acids? Like, can you
No,
explain that?
that's just terminology. Okay, so we have
Right.
fats, and fats are solid at room temperature. Oils are liquid at room temperature. What makes oils liquid is they contain more essential fatty acids and they have a lower melting point, right? Or not a lower solidification point, right? So oils are liquid at room temperature because they have more essential fatty acids in them. So that's the difference between fats and oils. But all fats and oils are mostly made out of triglycerides. And the triglycerides are glycerol molecules with 3 fatty acid chains hanging from them. So the fatty acids are the building blocks of fats and oils. Okay. And, and so the hard fats have fatty acids in them, and the liquid oils have fatty acids in them. They're just different. More saturated fatty acids in the hard fats, and more omega-3, omega-6, and omega-9 in the oils. And olive oil, which has a lot of omega-9, which is, it'll go solid in your fridge or get crystals in your fridge, because its melting point is, it's not as hard as the hard fats, so it's liquid at room temperature, but like my oil will not go hard in the fridge. It stays liquid in the fridge. But olive oil may go hard in the fridge because the fatty acids in olive oil are less unsaturated. So they tend to be more in the direction of harder than the essential fatty acids are.
Okay, so then when I think of oils that are solid at room temperature, I think of coconut oil, or other oils that have a high level of saturated fat,
Yeah.
which have been said to be very very bad for you. So
Butter, tallow.
right, animal
Yeah.
oils that come out of animals. So
And
my
tropical
understanding
fats.
from what you're saying is that the oil, so those aren't oils, so the saturated fat is fat,
Correct.
not same as these oils which are high in the omega-3, omega-6s
Correct.
and omega-9s, or you're saying omega-9s is more closer to the saturated fat?
Well, omega-9 is in the middle.
Okay.
And it has to do with double bonds. If there are no double bonds, it's saturated. That makes it harder. If it's got one double bond like omega-9s do, that makes it a little bit more liquid. If it's got two like omega-6s do, or three like omega-3s do, well, then you have to put it to a very, like -17 is where omega-3s become hard in the cold. Right.
Okay.
So there's literally, it's a gradation based on how many double bonds there are. The double bonds make them more liquid.
Double bonds of hydrogen, is that what
Double
it was?
bonds, there are 2 carbons that
Okay.
if they were saturated, they would have 2 hydrogens on each carbon. But if they're unsaturated, a hydrogen is removed from each of the carbons between which the double bond is. So the hydrogen's been taken out. It's in fact they're called dehydrogenase enzymes. So they take the hydrogens off, and then the molecule bends. And when the molecule bends, it doesn't stack or crystallize easily, which is why they're more liquid, because
Oh,
the shapes don't fit together to crystallize so well.
and so earlier you were talking about the damage, and I don't think I asked this question, so forgive me if I did.
Mhm.
What is the actual damage to that, one with 19 zeros behind it, molecules and a teaspoon of oil?
Yeah,
What is net
it's actually a
damage?
6 followed by 19 zeros.
Oh, it's a six. Well, okay, a six.
60 quintillion. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So the question is,
So when you say is it oxidized? Like what is when you say
Oh, yeah.
damage, what is it actually, what do you actually mean by the damaged molecules? What is
There are
the
all kinds of different kinds of damage done to the oils when they're processed, and it goes like fragmented molecules. So you're breaking some of the chains. Fragmented molecules, double bond shifts. They move into different places. That changes the properties. Trans fatty acid, twisted molecules. So you get trans fatty acids from that. You get cyclized molecules. You get cross-linked molecules between triglycerides, so from one fat molecule to another, or within triglycerides from one fatty acid chain in a molecule and another. And those changes, we don't have enzymes to break them down. Okay, then you can get polymerized, dimerized, trimerized, polymerized molecules. So there's all kinds of different kinds of changes. And when we measure trans fatty acids, we measure oxidized, of course, is another one. So we measure oxidized molecules, but all of these other molecules that happen, nobody even measures them. So when you get an oil, it doesn't say how many damaged molecules or what kind of damaged molecules are in that oil. So it's kind of like it's a thing is we're doing something to ourselves that we think maybe is not so bad. It's only 1% damaged, but we're actually from your guess, we're underestimating by 60 quadrillion times how much damage we're doing to ourselves. And that's something to think about, right? It's just oil, and then you do that for 30 years and then you get cancer. And then you say, I don't know why I got cancer. I always ate good. No, you didn't know. You didn't know how much damage you're getting from oils. And if you guessed about it, you would have guessed it at least 1 billion times too low, the actual damage that you're getting. And out of that comes my quote is that more health problems come from damaged oils than any other part of nutrition, and more health benefits come from getting our oils right, made with health in mind and properly balanced, than any other part of nutrition.
So is there a diet that provides enough oil without actually having to, from food? Is that possible?
Well, it might be possible for some people. It wasn't possible for me. That's why I say eat all the whole foods you want, but if your skin is still dry, and especially in winter, you'll notice it, or in dry climate, you'll notice it. If your skin is still dry, then you still need more oil, and then use the oil to augment that, to get your health to optimum rather than adequate. If you want to cheat death for a few years longer, you might have to high grade some of the principles of health to get that done.
So with regard to flax seeds, what I tend to see on the shelf is flax meal. So
Yeah.
what you're saying, if I'm understanding correctly, is by definition, flax meal has the oil pressed out of it, so you're losing omega-3s and omega-6s.
No, I don't know that. You can get flax meal that has not been pressed, but you
Oh,
can also get flax meal that has been pressed. So it depends on what you're getting.
okay.
Yeah.
And is there a nutritional profile? Like if we look on the back and it says a certain amount of, fat on there, is there a way of knowing whether or not we have the pressed version or not?
Yeah, the total fat in flaxseed is around 35%. And if in the flax meal, when the oil's been pressed out, it's more like 10%. So that would be a way to tell. The other thing, though, that you want to pay attention to is when the flax oil is broken down into meal, you now have exposure to light, to oxygen, that will then make the oil go rancid, or will create free radicals, or will create these broken molecules. And so it should be packaged in dark, and it should be packaged in a way that you don't get oxygen into the flax, because it'll go rancid and you'll smell it. It'll start smelling like fish oil, because
So
fish oil is even more sensitive than flax oil and goes rancid very, very, very quickly.
So I'm not sure if you're familiar with Dr. Michael Greger. He has an organization called nutritionfacts.org. Are you?
Yes, I read him all the time. Yeah.
Okay. So he has a video specifically on flax meal, and in the video he said that was the expectation. And specifically, this is not true with chia seeds, but he said it is true with flax seeds, where they thought that it would go rancid. They thought it would go bad because you'll get ground flax, you can buy it all over the place, and they found that it didn't have that degradation. Have you looked into that at all?
It doesn't make sense to me, when you expose an omega-3 molecule to air and light, damage will take place. What I say to people is get the flax seeds, they're cheaper, and flip them in your blender when you make a shake or a smoothie, and then get them out of your shake or your smoothie. So what you do is you're breaking the seeds up just before you take it, rather than having these seeds sitting on a shelf for maybe a month or 2 months or 6 months or however long they are. It's always fresh is always the big word.
All right, so it
Yeah.
sounds like coffee grinder would work well for that.
Coffee grinder could work, although the oils will glue up the coffee grinder.
Oh,
Depends on what kind of a grinder you have.
is there a specific grinder that you would recommend?
Well, yeah, blender. I think the blender is the easiest way to do it.
Okay.
When you put it in a dry blender, then you blend, then you're mixing it up and you're heating it up. It's getting heated up by the process. Then you're getting, when you heat up the seeds, then oxygen and light react faster. So you want to not do that as much as possible.
So wait, so a dry blender as opposed to what?
As opposed to a wet blender when you do it in a smoothie or shake.
Okay. So do it in a smoothie or shake with the liquids in it, and
Yeah,
then that'll keep it cooler and
yeah, because
the oxygen because it'll be in the liquid.
right, exactly, yeah.
Okay, awesome. I appreciate that information. So, can you explain? All right, so you mentioned like frying at one point,
Yeah.
and so my understanding is one of the worst things you can do to food. Can you?
Frying is the single stupidest thing we've ever invented to do to food if health is what we want. And I tell people, listen, you have a frying pan, everybody has a frying pan, go get it out, turn it upside down, hit yourself up the side of the head with it, and then throw it out. And go back to cooking in water or eating raw if you can. Because if you look at nature's mandate was fresh, whole, raw, organic, local, seasonal, except some things you keep over winter. And for humans, probably mostly plant-based, right? And every creature eats like that except for us. Fresh, whole, raw, organic. So that's the standard. And then when you cook in water, you're already killing the enzymes, you're destroying the enzymes, you're killing the probiotics, you damage some of the more sensitive nutrients in it. And if you fry it, you burn the food and you make it toxic. Whether it's carbs or fats or proteins you fry, all three of them, independent of each other, increase inflammation and increase the risk of cancer.
That's with the frying and oil.
That's
right?
what we're doing when we fry.
Sure. And for people who, I think probably one of the most popular things is French fries, right? And you can't really, to my knowledge, eat potatoes raw. You can obviously, boil them. How would you recommend, saving our French fries, if you will?
Well, I think you should send the French fries back to France. Of course, they weren't invented in France either.
Not surprised. Not surprised.
So anyway, well, you can eat potatoes raw. I have done it. They have a funny taste, but so do a lot of foods. A lot of our tastes are acquired, or you can cook them. I'm not a big fan of potatoes. I'm not a big fan of starches. I'm more seed and nuts and oil based because I'm very sensitive to blood sugar. And I used to get, it's very easy to put on weight on starches for me. I do eat some fruit, but But my favorite food is green vegetables and seeds and nuts.
Okay. And now what about for those people who do want to eat hot food, what
Yeah.
about like baking a potato or putting one in an air fryer
Well,
type
if
of
you on the outside, yeah. So on the outside, if you burn it, there's toxicity created. Same with baking, right? The crust is brown. The inside is steamed because it's wet, but the
Okay.
outside dries out and then overheats and burns. So whenever you do something that changes the color of the food, then you're creating toxicity. If you don't want any toxicity, then you got to boil it in water,
Okay.
or have it or prepare it in a way where it stays wet and doesn't dry out.
And what about steaming? So you mentioned like the boiling would kill the enzymes and all that type of stuff,
Yeah.
or kill the probiotics. Same thing with steaming. It's the temperature?
It depends on how long you steam it. You could steam it so just the outside is cooked. That will kill the probiotics, but you might still have some of the enzymes in the food that haven't been killed. Now, why is that important? Because if you were to eat in nature, you're running around naked in nature eating raw food, you would get probiotics on the food. They would start in your mouth, they would work your way through your entire digestive system, and that's a good thing. And the enzymes in the raw food, they'll do on average 60% of the digestion of the food for you if you chew your food properly. And it's from 10% to 90%. So those enzymes take a load off your digestive system, and that in turn takes a load off your immune system. And that frees the immune system to go after cancer cells and debris and dead cells and all of that. So you're doing your immune system a huge favor by either eating your foods raw, or if you cook them, replacing the enzymes that you destroyed by cooking.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we have someone asking a question about your product. Does your product specifically exclude the inflammatory, and I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, arachidonic and
Arachidonic acid.
linoleic fatty acids?
No, okay. So this is a question that comes from misunderstanding omega-6s and seed oils. Linoleic acid is the omega-6 essential fatty acid. And in the body, the omega-6 is converted into two series of hormone-like regulating substances. One is pro-inflammatory, and that's important for healing. And the other one is anti-inflammatory. The omega-3 is turned into a third set of, they're called eicosanoids or prostaglandins, prostacyclins, thromboxanes, and leukotrienes. The omega-3 is turned into a third set of eicosanoids, and those are anti-inflammatory. You need the inflammatory eicosanoids just like you need the anti-inflammatory ones. So the idea that omega-6 gives you inflammation and hurts you, that's a misunderstanding of the system. There's inflammation for healing, and you need that, and that comes from omega-6s. And there's inflammation that's chronic. That comes from damage done to the oils by the processing and by the frying that we use those oils for. Okay, so again, the people who've only done half their homework because they didn't look into the back of why are these causing us problems. The omega-6s are causing us problems. So they give you a whole story that misleads everybody. And then when you follow that story, that will make you sick. So it's kind of like my pet peeve in my field is that people, free speech. Free speech, you get to say what you want. That's the upside. You know what the downside is? You get to say what you want. It doesn't have to be true.
Right.
And that's the problem. Free speech is a double-edged sword. So the answer to that question is yes, there's omega-6 in it. You need that, but the omega-6 needs to not be damaged. because then it'll do the job that it's supposed to do in nature.
And one of the classic things that the same person is raising this point, which I was thinking about earlier, and I hit on it a little bit, which is olives versus olive oil, right? Is
Yeah.
it, is getting the olive oil or the olives, is eating the olives better than eating the olive oil? Or are you saying that, because you're not getting enough oil in general, maybe eat the olive oil if it wasn't damaged?
No, olive oil is better food than olive oil, just like flax seed is better food than flax oil.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm not making a distinction. So the food is always better. The only difference is that olive oil has no omega-3s in it. So it's a stupid oil, actually. And it only has 10% omega-6. And the monounsaturates that it contains, 80%, your body can make those out of sugar and starch. So you don't need them in your diet. So olive oil is in, and olive oil, people like it. The reason they like it, it's not damaged by processing if it's real extra virgin olive oil, because there's some cheating going on in that industry too. Okay, so if it's a really extra virgin olive oil, it's made by a process that doesn't damage the oil. That's a good thing. But it's a lousy source. It's not even a source of omega-3, and it's a pretty lousy source of omega-6. So you're getting the non-damage, that's important, but you're not getting the essential fatty acids that you have to have. And they're sensitive, and olive oil is pretty stable. People like that about it too, but it's stable only because you're not getting the good stuff in it. Okay, so olive oil is like, by the way, they didn't use it for frying. Traditionally olive oil was not used for frying. They cooked in water. Then they dumped the water, and then they added the oil for flavor. And oils help to absorb oil-soluble nutrients in foods. So they have a benefit that way as well.
Okay. And oftentimes, and I guess because it has a lower smoke point and it can get converted into it gets made into a carcinogen. Like there's certain oils that are used for frying. Not that frying is good for you, but specifically olive oil is almost never used for frying, right? Can you explain?
Olive oil?
Yeah.
Oh no, people are recommending olive oil for frying all the time.
Oh, okay. Because
Yeah.
I hear like don't fry with olive.
Traditionally they never used it for frying.
Okay.
Right.
What were the oils that were traditionally used for frying?
Weren't.
Okay.
There was no oil industry. The oil industry only started around 1850.
Okay.
And before that, sometimes they had little presses, little hand presses, but then they had fresh oil. And the frying mostly when I was a kid, I'm 82. So, so when I was a kid, mostly cooking meant in water. Now cooking means usually fried, but cooking actually meant in water. And we call the other thing frying. And now when we talk about, I'm going to cook my food, the frying pan comes out, the oil goes in, and they're frying, but they call it cooking. So then the word has changed in its meaning, mostly because of advertising, because the industry wanted to sell more oil, and they figured out if you cook it in oil, they can sell a lot of oil. And then they started promoting how it's more convenient, and women are too busy anyway, and it shortens the time, and so they bamboozled our parents into changing their cooking habit. Okay. And it was basically just self-serving for the industry. It was definitely not a good step for health. It was a really bad step for health.
So you mentioned olive oil and it not always being real, which is, I guess, that's a major controversy going around, or not controversy, major issue going around where I'm not sure the exact origin. I think olives have become very expensive or something like that. So
no, I'll tell you why.
Yes,
I'll
please.
tell you why. What happened, olive oil became very popular, and olive trees grow very slowly. And so the demand exceeded the supply. And when that happened, then people started messing with the oil because they wanted to sell olive oil because the market's there. But then they would put in canola oil, or they would put in soybean oil, or at one point in Spain, they dumped in mineral oil. Well, mineral oil doesn't belong in your body. And when they did that, there were about 1,000 people who died from olive oil that they had dumped mineral oil in. And there was something like 20 people who ended up with long-term disability and pain from drinking that oil. This is like probably 30 years ago now. So cheating is a time-tested way of getting advantage without effort. But the reason why it happened is because olive oil became very popular, because it isn't damaged, it also keeps well. So there's lots of reasons why people would want to use it. And it just outstripped the supply. And that's where the cheating began.
So now, so someone is commenting, JW. So I'm gonna turn over to the audience for a couple of questions here.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope we get into digestion and what health is too.
Well, you know what then? Before, Evelyn and JW, I'm gonna pick on you shortly. But why don't you go ahead and touch on digestion and what health is right now? That way we can make sure that we get that.
Okay. After I got done with oils and said, okay, we got to figure it out. We still have a lot of marketing to do, but what's the next thing to do? What's the next biggest problem? And my view is digestion. Everybody's got something going. Either you're farting or you're belching, or you got pain when you eat, or you get bloating, or you get diarrhea, or you get constipated. I mean, there's something going on because it is the hardest working system in your body. It's the system that takes the foods you eat, breaks them down into building blocks, gets them absorbed, so you can build your body out of stuff that isn't your body. And so there's a lot of foreign material goes through that. And so say, well, how do you deal with digestion? Well, there's like only 4 or 5 things. One is digestive enzymes. If you eat raw, you get 60% of the digestion done by enzymes. If you cook it, you destroy those enzymes. Now your body has to do more than twice as much work. But it was actually made for raw food. Even if you're not used to it, it was originally made for raw food. So then replace the enzymes that you destroyed. That gets you back in line with how it was in nature. So digestive enzyme. Probiotics get killed. You got to replace the probiotics. That gets you back in line with how it was in nature. And then fiber. Fiber is the food for the microbiome. And so plant-based fiber, because there's no fiber in animal foods, is number 3. And you want to get the best kind of fiber for digestion is the water-soluble kind that you have in flax and psyllium and chia seeds. It's mucilage, absorbs a lot of water, makes bowel regularity easy, slows down sugar absorption, takes cholesterol out of the body, because you get cholesterol. Your exit for cholesterol is liver dumps it into digestive tract takes it out of the body. So that's fiber. And then 4th is bitter, which are basically herbs like gentian and southernwood and bitter orange and what's it called, triphala and neem. And the bitters improve digestion and liver function. So those are 4, and then there are herbs and spices. I'm very big on spices these days. Very, very helpful in digestion, including amla, which is Indian gooseberry, and curry, turmeric, garlic. Cloves are huge in terms of spice and benefits, health benefits, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, all kinds of antis. And the best ginger is another one. Mustard is pretty good. Cayenne. What else do we have? So there's quite a few herbs and spices that are also helpful in dealing with digestion. And if you do those things, just about every digestive problem that you have will go away. How do I know that? I'm 82. I don't have any digestive problems. And I'm doing what I'm talking about, right? So that's the digestion issue. And what we basically did, oh, one thing, I just want to say something about probiotics. You know, when a cow eats grass, it gets probiotics in its mouth with every mouthful of grass because they're on the grass, you know, and they're on raw foods in nature. So what we do is we take a capsule and we swallow the capsule. So then it opens up in our stomach, and then we get benefits from those probiotics from our stomach down, but none from our stomach up. But they're actually supposed to start in our mouth. So what I do is I take bifidobacteria. So it's a product called Super Bifido Plus. Bifidobacteria at night, before I go to bed, I open a couple of capsules after I do all my dental hygiene. I open a capsule on my tongue and I brush my teeth with probiotics, because the probiotics do three things. They steal the rot bacteria's food, they outpopulate them, and they inhibit their growth. And when you're sleeping, you don't swallow. So all the rot bacteria are multiplying because they're eating your face, you're eating your mouth. And in the morning, you wake up with awful breath. You know, breath is always worst in the morning. That's because the rot bacteria that the Listerine didn't kill are doubling every 20 to 30 minutes. And in 8 hours of sleep, you end up with 65 times more bad breath bacteria than you had before you did your dental hygiene. I like to do the math, so, right? Yeah. So the way you fix that is, and then you get infections in your teeth, and then those infections affect your inner organs, including there's some pretty good evidence that bacteria in your mouth can make cardiovascular disease worse. So how do you deal with it? You make sure that your mouth is full of probiotics when you go to bed. They're sleeping, they're multiplying, and you wake up with exponentially less severe bad breath in the morning. Highly, highly recommended, because now you're doing it the way it is in nature. You're getting the probiotics starting in your mouth, not starting in your stomach or your digestive tract.
Can that be done with any probiotic? There's a lot of brands on the market. Does it have to be specifically this?
No, it can be. The reason I use Bifido is Bifido, as you get older, Bifido bacteria get lower in your colon, and that's associated with colon issues for older people. So I use it for that reason. But the other reason I use it, it tastes really good. Not all probiotics taste good. You want to get one that tastes good because you're going to taste it when you put it in your mouth and brush your teeth with it.
And when you just put a little water in your mouth and you open up the capsules, put a little water in your mouth and brush?
Yeah, I don't even put water in it. I just dump it on my tongue and then brush it. So really? it gets saliva. It doesn't get any water.
And how is that for gum health?
Really good.
Okay.
Really good. No inflammation. I have no inflammation in my gums.
Have you noticed a reverse of did you always have good gum health, or it got better?
No, it's better. It's better. It improved when I started brushing my teeth with probiotics.
Okay. That's very interesting. Yeah. All right. So you went over digestion and health you want to talk about?
Well, health and human nature, right? Because we're talking about health, right? Mm-hmm. And, we talk about food and fitness usually when we talk about health. But it's about time that we decided to make a teachable field of health that is based in nature and human nature. Because, Mike, after I did digestion, I said, okay, what else affects health? Well, actually, everything affects health. Everything affects health, right? So you're talking about, and so the system of health, if you're going to look at all of it, there's 10 parts to it. First one is awareness and attention, where your focus goes, right? Where your focus goes will determine what your life is like, right? Because it's what you focus on, it's what you learn, it's what you think about, and it affects you. So that's number one. Number two is life energy. Life energy is a fraction of solar energy. So you're a solar energy gadget, and so am I, right? How does that go? Well, the solar energy is filtered through space, then filtered through the atmosphere, then filtered through plants. They absorb some of it. That activates electrons. They then bond. and that solar energy fraction is stored in the bonds. Now you've got a molecule, then you eat some of those molecules, and they're digested and they're absorbed, and in your cells, those bonds are broken, and the solar energy fraction is released, and that's the energy you live on, only now you call it life. And that energy is the master in your body. It weighs nothing, and it runs everything. And actually, that energy is your individual essence. Because if I say to you, hey, what's, whose body is that? I point at you, say, whose body is that? What's your answer?
Whose body is
Yeah.
this body?
Yeah.
My body, Michael's
Mine.
body?
Okay. And now here's why I ask it. See, I like trick questions. So you said, this is my body. So then question is, if that's your body, you've just told me that you are not the body. That the body is your property and you're the owner of the body. So now the question is, who is the owner of your body? Who are you as owner of your body? Never thought about it, right?
Right.
Okay. So who are you as owner of the body?
I mean, I guess when you put it that way, I'm one with my body, so I'm not the owner of my body. I am my body. Is that?
No, that's completely wrong.
Okay.
No, life owns your body.
Okay.
Life runs it, right? Weighs nothing, runs everything. Everything, from electrons all the way up to running around in the gym, okay. Right? So life owns the body. So now the question is, if you are life and the body, you own the body, then how well do you know yourself as life, the owner of the body?
I'm going to say not well.
Yeah, and most people would have to say not well, because I never sit with myself and focus in on what that energy is, right? Because I'm busy doing everything else, right? Okay, so we don't know how well it is. So if you were to sit down and get really still, become really quiet, and go deeply into the stillness in the space your body occupies, you would actually be able to see light, hear sound, and feel love in that space. But we don't do that.
No.
Right? And so when you find that out, if you get in touch, if you put your focus into that energy, you feel so cared for, you feel so loved, that it's not about you anymore. That it's like, oh my God, I feel so cared for. So then now what am I going to do with my life? Well, your life becomes really simple, because now it's like, where can I help? What needs to be done? How can I make the biggest splash for good that I can make in the time that I have? Completely change, because before, if you don't feel cared for, then you don't feel cared for. Then you're always trying to do something. What can I do that'll get me feeling cared for or taken care of, right? And it's very different, so then I wouldn't do things that needed to be done if I couldn't see how they would take care of me. So because it was always about me, because I need to feel taken care of. There's that like heartache, when you feel uncomfortable in your chest, makes you restless, makes you feel empty, it's like, something's missing, lost something, what is this, right? All that is you lost yourself, because your focus is not present in your presence. And that presence is so, it's unconditional, empowering love for the body. It's the master in your body. It runs the show. It's your resident expert. You want to know how to live? Why don't you ask life? Right? And then you have it with you. Wherever you go, you can ask life, how should I live? What's the right decision to make here? How should I address this? What's the action I should take? Right? Because because that life, that master, that expert is with you in the trench you live in. And when it comes to health, feeling loved is very good for health. and feeling present and feeling aware and being content. Very good for health. It's really good for health. In fact, there's research that says when you meditate, or do some kind of stillness practice, you reverse aging. And in psychology, they talk about vagus nerve, rest and digest issues, right? That's all the same issue, only they blame it on the nerve when it's actually energy, because life is energy, right? The love is energy, right? And so then there's that. So then we have the body, which is food and fitness, and water and air, and digestion and detox, right? And sleep and rest and healing. And then we have protective mind, which is about survival skills. It's also about procreation and parenting and education and teaching skills, because all our skills are about how to live on the planet reasonably well, not get eaten by either bacteria or lions, right? So that's number 5. Then we have a habitual mind, which is all the garbage, all the mental baggage we carry around that if we examine, we say, well, that isn't even true. Let me dump that. Then you have social group. Well, people affect your health. People put you down all the time. They can make you sick. And people who encourage you, and appreciate you and accept you, so that's good for health. And then you have the natural environment. That's where your resources comes from, but there's also some danger in that environment. So you got to have gratitude for the resources and respect for the power of it. And then there's the big picture, coming to terms with the fact that you are a spark of solar energy living in a body that is a terminal condition in an infinite universe, and to be okay with that, to be comfortable with it, that you get to play here for a while, and then the body goes back to where it came from, recycled. And then the last one is emotions, which are a composite of those other 9. And depending on how aligned you live with those 10 will determine how healthy you are. And each one of those has a different nature and a different function, needs a different kind of attention on a regular basis, goes off in a different way, and responds to a different kind of intervention. And if you give all of them their due, then your emotional state will be something like calm presence, or Werner Erhard calls it serene passion. Like you'll be just cool. You just be cool, right? So, we're fighting about pesticides and all kinds of other things, pesticides and industrial chemicals, and RFK is trying to fix all of that out. I would like to have a conversation with him about the nature of health based in nature and human nature, because we have to build that out. Because the only reason we have all this other garbage that we're fighting is because we haven't built it out. We haven't built out health as a teachable field. If there's somebody who wants to work on that seriously, I'd be definitely interested in having a conversation about it. But I want to talk to RFK, because right now he's in a position where if he understood, he's a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a biology guy, right? So if he understood what the nature of health is, and I don't know anybody who can do that better than I can at this point. There may be somebody, but because I've got the whole picture. I'm not just doing it. I'm not just doing one piece of it. Psychologists do a piece, and the doctor does a piece, and the fitness trainers do a piece. I'm doing the whole thing, because we need it as a coherent work so that we can teach it, so that people actually have the information they need to take the actions and do the things they need to do in order to have the best possible quality life that is within them. And we could all live a lot better than we do. So the other part of that is turning human nature into a teachable field. And that's also included, because the first 6 parts that I talked about, they're all about human nature. right?
Okay.
And human nature, we already said, human nature, your individual essence is life energy, but you don't know it, right? So anything, so whatever that's responsible for in terms of the quality of your life and in terms of your health is going to be a weak area for you as long as you don't know it, right? And most people, I mean, I'm picking on you, I'm not really picking on you, but most people live not aware of it, but only because we haven't done the home. I mean, just think about it. We've been here for 200,000 years, or who knows how long, right? And we know how to make a watch. We know what the principles and the components are to make a watch. And we don't know what the principles and components are that make a human being. And then we wonder why we get into wars and why we get into crazy, crazy things and why we throw pesticides all over and why we can even justify that. If we knew what this is, it would not be justifiable, a lot of what we do. And there's a way to live. I came out of a war. So I've been thinking about this kind of stuff since I was 6 years old. Because it's like, man, there must be a way that people can live in harmony. And this cocky voice that I'm going to find out how. Right? So I've been thinking about that. That's why I went into biology. That's why I went into psychology. That's why I do what I do. Because honestly, we could all live incredibly beautiful lives. What's in us makes that possible. We're wired for living beautifully. But we have to give each part its due, and we got to know what each part is so we can. And that's basically what I'm going to spend my time on between now and the time my body checks out.
Thank you very much for sharing that. If somebody wanted to go along that path,
yeah,
what would be the easiest or first step for them to, I guess, get in touch with their, I guess, the fact that they're one with life's energy?
Well, let me answer it a little bit different. I think what is most neglected is that we're supposed to be human beings and we live like we're human doings. And we don't know ourselves simply because we don't spend time with ourselves. It's like if I want to get to know you, I should spend time with you, right? So if I say, oh, but I want to get to know you, but so I spent time with somebody else, well, that's not going to work, right? Right? So if you want to get to know yourself, you have to spend some time with yourself and be observant. And the thing we don't do, the thing that I think is most missing of anything, we do not take time to sit still, be with ourselves, bring our focus into the space our body occupies, and discover what is there to experience. Because that's where your peace lives. That's where your love lives. If nobody loves you on the outside, you are unconditionally loved on the inside. When I feel unconditionally loved on the inside, I become a lot less dependent on being liked by other people. But I will shine that love that I feel, automatically that will shine into the world, right? So the biggest thing is that the three parts, the awareness, the life energy, and then what I call positive mind or inspired purpose. Those three get the least attention, but they're the core of our existence. So I would say if you want to start, and there's a reason for it. Like if I feel content, then I don't have too many bones to pick with the world, Then I live in a world where a lot of things change. I don't want them to change. That's how I drive myself nuts in my head, right? Well, when I feel content, I'm okay with the world being the way it is. Some things change and some things change fast. Some things change slow. Some things seem like they don't change at all. I'm okay with all that because I'm okay, right? So that work, I think, is what is most missing and what pretty much I would say anybody around the world, I've been to a lot of places, pretty much every culture, every nation, because we study culture and nation, we don't study biology. We don't study ourselves. We don't spend time with ourselves, getting to know us. I went into biology because I wanted to know what life was, what life is. We never studied life in biology, even though it's called the study of life. We studied form and function. We didn't study life. I wanted to know what life is, right? And to know what life is, you have to spend time with yourself, being present, becoming aware of the energy that is your life, that is your animation, that allows you to spend time in being rather than in doing. You know, we say work hard, play hard. We need to add one to that. Rest hard. You know, spend time deliberately not doing anything. You'll still breathe and your heart will still go, and you know, but you're not doing anything that distracts you from getting present to your own existence.
Thank you. So now, knowing what you know now,
Yeah.
if you could do it again, would you still study biology, or what would you study that you think would get more at the heart of what you're talking about today?
I would say I wish my parents had done their homework, because then I would have grown up in a situation where they modeled that for me. And since they didn't do it, I had to figure it out myself. So I want to model it for other people. And if you're a parent and you haven't done your homework, do your homework. Model it for your children. Make it easier for them. Because if you don't model it for them, it's much harder to do as an adult than it is as a child. And we were in that space when we were in our mother's womb. We were actually in our space because we had no place to go and nothing to do. So we're just hanging out. Just hanging out, right? Like, you know, and what was that like? Well, then we came out, and where our focus got attracted into the world because we had to get to know the world. But then nobody knew, so nobody told us that there was a place to come back to that's a really good place, right? And so, and then what happens, and out of that, your heart aches, you know, lots of triggers trigger heartache. You know, somebody dumps you, or somebody betrays you, or your dog dies, or your grandmother dies, you know, or, you know, there's lots, or you hoped for something and you didn't get it. You failed, right? So then your heart aches, your uneasy feeling in your chest. Well, that feeling is triggered by lots of things that we've used as substitutes for ourselves. It's not the cause of heartache. The cause of heartache is our disconnection from ourselves. And so I say to people, sit with heartache. That might be the good starting point. You sit with your heartache, feel it. You might have some tears. It's okay, it won't kill you. Feel it, be present to it. Accept it, don't judge it, just let it, just feel it. And that far behind it, like less than a millimeter, less than a hair's breadth behind that, is your reconnection to yourself. Oh, and that's when your life starts to bloom. Because you're actually in the bloom of your own life, right? Because your life is something, right?
So I think it's really hard for people to go on a journey without guidance. I mean, that's why I think we're so prone to seek out mentors, gurus, teachers. Most people aren't progenitors of thought, right? They need to learn from watching it, just like you said, having a child look at a parent, for example.
No, yeah, but hang on.
Yes.
The reason why we're not progenitors of thought, so it's a nice saying, progenitors of thought. The reason why we're not is because we don't go to the space where those thoughts get progenitored. You know, Einstein said, you know, I love this guy. You know, Einstein says 99 times I think and think and think and I get nothing. And one time I stop thinking, I float in silence, and the answer comes to me. And they also said, you know, nothing is sacred or everything is sacred. And I think he came down on the everything is sacred. You know, And and say, I don't mean it in a religious sense. I mean it in a sense of wow, wow, look at this, look at this, look at that, look at, wow, this is incredible, right? How this all runs, and I get to be a part of it. Wow, that's pretty amazing, right? And then you live in wonder. And kids come up with kids progenerate ideas all the time, right? And they say things, and they sometimes blow people's minds because their observations are so accurate, and the way they easily simply put into words that they've never heard. And that's because they live closer to that space. So when you say most people are not progenitors, no, I would say most people are not in touch with themselves, so they don't know where the source of those thoughts is.
Well, where I was going to go with that was,
Yeah.
are there any cultures that you've seen that are doing this right, that are good examples for people to follow? I mean, even if we all inherently have inside of us the ability to progenerate thought, which I've never actually used the word that way, but to progenerate thought. It's a lot easier to see somebody else doing something and mimic it, and then tweak it from there, right? Once you can see it actually work. Is there anyone doing it right in your opinion that people could observe and learn from?
As a culture, no. As a nation, no. As individual teachers, there are always some around. And I would say, if I can take religion out of Jesus, and take philosophy out of Buddha, and take religion out of Krishna, and those teachers, they were as close as we ever got to teachers of human nature. But the religions messed up what they did. The religions turned it into something to control people with, as another hierarchy. But I mean, let me just give you an example. One of the things Jesus is supposed to have said, he said, the kingdom of heaven is within you. Wait, the kingdom of heaven is within me. The kingdom of heaven, whatever that is, kingdom of heaven is like a cool place, right? A really good place. Oh, it's within me. Oh. And then he says, seek first the kingdom, and then everything else will fall into place. Well, how many people do you know that because they read the New Testament and follow the religion, that actually take time to bring their focus inside, which is what we've been just talking about, that's being neglected, and discovering for yourself what's there, right? And the truth is, you have to say hardly any, right? Or he says, what you've done to these, one of the least of these, that you have done to me. Well, if you think about that, what does that mean? Well, it means I am in everyone. Those guys never said, I'm fancy and I'm blessed and you're screwed. They never said that. They all said in one way or another, what's in me is in you. And they then helped people to sit still so they could bring their focus home inside to discover for themselves what these guys were talking about. And all of these guys, Buddha and all these guys, they all did some kind of a stillness practice. They went off by themselves into nature, in the desert, under the Bodhi tree, right? So they all had some practice. Now, these are all some of these are pretty old. Buddha, 2,500, Krishna, 5,000, Jesus, 2,000. They can't express it the way I'm expressing it because they didn't have all the knowledge that we've gathered about the world in all that time. But the issue is still the same. There you are. Something runs your body. You don't know what it is. And you need to sit still to find out what that is and recognize how magnificent is your nature. Right? So, and there are always teachers in different ways, and some of them have agendas and some of them, So it's always the marketplace, buyer beware. It's always an issue, right? But because it's within you, either you can just sit on a rock until you find it, or you can ask questions and read books and talk to one person, talk to another person, or join a club and pay your dues, or whatever it is. It's not the information you have within you. Getting access to it is not that hard if you recognize that your heartache is calling you home. So maybe if that's the only thing that anybody heard that makes sense, your heartache is the call to bring your focus back home inside to your awesomeness and your magnificence, and to experience your life in an unbelievably beautiful way, because it is by nature unbelievably beautiful. Right? So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's kind of like that. Everybody wants it cut and dried for them. But the truth is, none of those gurus or teachers can crawl into your heart. Only your focus can go there. So they can tell you, bring your focus inside, but you have to bring your focus inside. And then you say, okay, I'm going to put my focus in the middle of my head. Well, how do I do that? Because I'm so used to putting it out there, I'm not very good at bringing it in here. So it takes practice.
Okay, so basically, whatever modality allows you to sit with yourself in the deepest way, where you are kind of in the center of your own mind, as opposed to externally thinking, regardless of what modality it is, that's the thing for
right.
that.
And it'll be experiential, not thought-based.
Okay.
It's a feeling. It's something you see, something you hear, something you feel, something you taste. It's not thoughts about. Experience comes first. There were no thoughts when you were in your mother's womb, right? You didn't have any thoughts. You didn't have any words. You didn't even know there's a mother around you, and you didn't know there was a world around the mother, right? So you just hang it up in bliss. You could say in bliss, in peace. Just hang it out. Your body was getting built. You weren't identified with the body because you were in a like an isolation tank, sort of, right? I call it the Buddha tank, right? So it's not like we haven't been there before. We spent 9 months there, if we're normal term babies.
Right.
Right. And what is that space like? Who are you if you strip yourself of your culture, your nation, your religion, your habits, your house, right? In the war that happened to us, we were left with only the clothes we wore, the body we were in, and the life in the body. Everything else got stripped. And that was like a huge gift, because I had so much less to wade through. I was 2 at the time, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so some very deep stuff to under, and all right.
Health and wholeness.
Health, right. Well, I guess you can't have health unless you have, you can't have physical health unless you have mental health, for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
And
So
social health and environmental health and focus health and energy health. Right.
all right. So I'm gonna now you can go back to the health conversation all that you want. I'm gonna ask you a question. I have
We'll just I'm
Okay.
I'm done with that. I'm
No, it
glad
was
I got to
very
do it, and
enjoyable.
I totally appreciate you indulging me.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. I appreciate you sharing your life experience and your wisdom. So now I feel a little off topic to talk about this, but how long, like, so you mentioned it as like dry skin as an indication that you don't have enough oil in your body.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know how much oil to take, and how long should it be? And let's say you have like a little bit of dry skin. How long should it take, and how much oil should you take?
That'll be individual. The nice thing about it is if you take oil and it makes it to the skin, your skin will let you know when you've arrived. But we ballparked it for when we set the numbers. We said ballpark in winter, tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day. So that for most adults, that would be 2 to 4 tablespoons a day, mixed in food, intake spread out over the course of the day. And in summer, you might need a little less because you're not burning as much of it for heat. So more of it makes it out to the skin. But if your skin is dry, then you know you need to tank up, right? Whether you do that with seeds and nuts, which are associated with longevity, or you do it with oils made with health in mind, one way or another, you need to get to the place where your skin is soft, smooth, and velvety.
So if you're let's say you take the let's say if you're a 150-pound male or 150-pound person, you take 3 tablespoons of oil.
Yeah.
How long would you expect the dry, for it to take for the dry skin? Are we talking days? Are we talking months?
Yeah. Well, it depends on where you're starting, but we're talking days.
Okay.
There's some things, your processing improves when you get the oils right. That might take 6 months. There are some people who notice their skin within hours, but not everybody does. So I would say give it a couple of weeks, usually say 30 days. 30 days. Do the 3 tablespoons for 30 days. And within that time, you will probably notice it on your skin.
And now the dry skin, would that include things like dandruff, or is that something totally different than just dry skin?
Well, dandruff, there's a dry dandruff and there's a greasy dandruff.
Okay.
Now, I know that from my own experience, right? So if you have enough oil on your skin will still change, right? Like if you go in a shower, and especially if you haven't had a shower for a while, maybe you've been out in the woods or something, right? And then you rub your skin, and we used to call them when we were kids, we called them sausages, because these little things rub off your skin. So we call them skin sausages, right?
Yeah.
So because what is that? That's your skin flaking off. Because your skin is always renewing, right? Same like the inside of your digestive tract is always shedding. It's rebuilt every 4 days, right? Your body is always turning over, right? And different things turn over at different rates. I've seen it said 98% of the atoms in your body are removed and replaced every year. 98%. So what does that mean? It means if you've got a problem and you're sick, you raise your standard, and in 1 year, you will have rebuilt 98% of your body to a higher standard. That's what healing is, right? But you got to set the standard. If no standard, no improvement, right? Or if you throw drugs at it that have side effects and are toxic, maybe you add something to it and makes it even worse, right? And sometimes what you're giving it for was less of a problem than what you got from the treatment, right? So because the body's always turning over is why that works. Now, the other thing you can do with oils that I didn't talk about, you can use them for detox. Because if you want to detox, like there were studies done with Agent Orange, they gave them oil every day, put them in they didn't give them oil. They put them in a sauna for 15 to 30 minutes every day for 3 to 6 months. And they were able to monitor the decrease of Agent Orange in their body and measure its presence in the oil in their skin. Now, what I'm saying is you can take oil and you can actually drive it, because if you take more oil than you need, more of it will go to your skin. And the liquid oils will go to your skin because they have negative charges, so they repel each other. And then oil-soluble toxins in your body will come out through your pores in the oil part of your skin. You can also do oil enemas, because there are crypts on the inside of the anus that fill with stuff your lymphatic system picks up. And that's their exit. I mean, nobody talks about it, but inside your anus, they fill with junk from your lymphatic system. And then every time you have a bowel movement, you take some of that stuff out, right? Now, what we're told is, well, the lymphatic system dumps into your vena cava just before it goes into your heart. But if its job is to get junk out of your body, that's the dumbest thing to do. So there has to be another exit mechanism. And so when I asked that question, it's like, no, that doesn't make any sense. And I found out about those crypts. I did an oil enema after I got poisoned. It smelled like all the chemicals I sprayed. It was really bad. And so I basically washed out those crypts. You can do that with oil because they're oil soluble.
Is that like I know dogs have a gland that people have to express every once in a while, probably because
Yeah.
of eating them. Is that similar to that? Is that the
I
same?
don't know the anatomy of that. I have never seen about those crypts. I've never seen that in a physiology book, in a medical book.
Okay.
But it's there. So is that the same? I don't know. There's somebody told me that those anal glands that the dogs have, that they're about detoxing stuff.
Right. Okay.
And I don't know if that's true or not because I haven't really looked into that.
Thank you. And so you mentioned one of the things for digestion, you were talking about spices. People tend to, have spices for years. Do they stay good? Do they go bad? Should you be buying small batches of spices and turning them over faster? Does it matter?
Well, it's always bad. Well, source is always good. Organic is always best. Sometimes there are places that have lead in their spices because they're growing them on, I don't know, in places where they still use leaded gasoline or something. Sometimes from China, there's some pretty dirty stuff because China's pretty dirty in a lot of ways. So you want to know the spices, grow them yourself if you can. There's quite a few that you can grow. And then try to buy the whole spice if you can, and then blend them as you use them, right? Because nature's packaging is pretty good, right? You can, they found flax seeds, 5,000 years old in caves in Switzerland, and they brought them out, they planted them, and they grew. So those seeds stayed alive 5,000 years.
Wow.
So nature's packaging is pretty remarkable sometimes. And so the same thing, spices, they come in whatever is the whole spice, then you can dry them. A lot of the leaves are, oregano and thyme and all those, you dry those, they keep pretty well dried, but always best whole and organic, and then fresh is good.
I'm gonna turn it over. We got a couple of questions from the audience, and I very much appreciate their patience.
Yes, JW and Evelyn.
Yes. Evelyn, thank you so much for your patience. Go ahead and ask your question of Udo.
Yeah, you were talking about the flax seeds being around for 5,000 years, and I've heard you say also that chia seeds are the same, that you don't need to refrigerate those. But my question is about hemp seeds. So we go to the health food store and we buy a package of shelled hemp seeds that have been sitting on the store shelf for who knows how long. So I'm wondering if those start oxidizing after a couple of weeks.
What are they packaged in?
They're just sealed packages. Although some companies will put them in like a shiny aluminum and they put some kind of preservative gas in them. But mostly, like I go to Trader Joe's and I buy hemp seeds. Who knows how long those have been sitting on the shelves? Are those oxidized? Because I've been reading a lot of stuff about oxidized omega-6s being very toxic to the cell membranes.
Well, oxidized oil, yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure if they made it to the cell membranes oxidized. Yeah, that wouldn't be a really good idea. It'd be a rancid cell membranes. It depends on what they're packaged in and depends on whether they're nitrogen flushed, because rancidity comes from oxygen. If you're in a nitrogen atmosphere that has no oxygen in it, then they will not be oxidized. So I don't know Trader Joe's. I don't know what the product is. So if I saw it, I would know. What I tend to do between chia and flax, I use flax. Flax has a whole bunch of other things in it that chia does not. And the seeds are, and there it's pretty easy. You buy the seeds, they got the cover on them, and you know, they keep very well, and then you break them down when you're going to eat them. So I would go for flax before I went for the hemp seeds. And I know the hemp seeds have a really hard shell on them. I'm familiar with that. I get some hemp seeds. I have some hemp seeds at my house. They do not taste rancid, and they're in plastic, and I get them by the kilogram, and they are. I'm pretty sure that they're nitrogen flushed. And if the nitrogen flushed and the plastic is doesn't let air through, because some do and some don't, then that packaging might be okay. But you would taste the rancidity. The rancidity tastes and smells like, you know, fishy. So your nose would probably be able to explain that to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Evelyn, for your question. And so with the hemp seeds, so a lot of people throw their hemp seeds into smoothies and stuff like that. So
Yep.
they may not realize it, but I guess you're suggesting that maybe they take a handful out, kind of sniff it or taste it and see if they recognize any.
I think, you know what, if they have it in a container and they open the container, you would smell it pretty. Rancid has it's a strong smell.
Okay.
And it's a kind of an obvious smell.
Okay. Okay. Our next question is going to JW. JW, go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, hi, Udo. Thanks so much for your presentation and all that you've shared. So this is just jumping back. Hearing you talk made me think, from back to 2000. So years ago, approximately 2000, 2005, I took an essential oil supplement promoted by a man named Brian Peskin.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know the quality of those oils, but my hair grew like weeds, and I got compliments on my hair and skin constantly. So
Yep.
eventually they stopped making that supplement, and my hair and skin have not been the same since. Of course, yep, I'm much older now. I'm 61. I've been whole food plant-based since 2011. Um, is there anything that I can take that you offer that would replicate what I used to take?
Okay, let me tell you about Peskin. I liked Peskin. He was an engineer. I
Yep.
was a biologist. When he did his ratios, I think they were wrong.
Okay.
But he was one of the few people who was willing to talk about the damage done to oils and to try to make something that was made with more care. So I had a lot of respect for him from that perspective.
That's great to hear.
I would say to you, he had more omega-6 and less omega-3.
Yes.
We have more omega-3 and less omega-6. We
Okay.
do that because we know what the status of omega-3 and omega-6 intake is. So if you took Udo's oil, that's what it's called, you might get similar results. My hair is pretty good for an old guy. And what we found out too is hair and nails grow about 25% faster. You don't get the split ends, and you don't get the split nails. And we wanted to, at one point, sell the oil through the hair cutter salons, because if they gave them the oil, then they'd come back 25% more often because their hair and nails would grow faster. We never got that done, but it was just a good thought.
So you've got different oils. So is it the 369 blend? Like which one?
Well, one has
right
DHA in it. I take the simple one. You know,
Which
one of them has some seed material in it. That's, you know, I just take the 369 oil blend. And the body will convert, you know, omega-3s into fish oil if the ratio is right. You know, the fish oil industry tells you they can't. Well, they started that the week we came out with flax oil in 1987.
Oh,
you know?
Wow. Okay.
And that was all turf protection, because if the body can convert, then why would you take fish oils that that taste bad.
Right.
Can you repeat that? What happened in 1987 that you put out, and then the
Oh,
and the-
we went public with flax oil in 1987, and before 1987, the research, the information from the fish oil industry was always 30% of the population can't convert enough omega-3s into fish oil. They didn't say they can't convert; they can't convert enough, and that meant 70% don't need fish oil. And it meant that only 30% would need it. So when we came out with flax oil, they had competition, because if the body can convert alpha linolenic acid in flax into EPA and DHA in fish oil, then why would you take fish oils that burp on you and it's very unpleasant and they stink if you buy it in bottles that aren't in capsules, right? So they said the body can't convert. And then it was like, we went back and forth. Yes, it can. No, it can't. Yes, it can. No, it can't. And it was like, you know what? In the end, somebody said, why are you arguing? Your basic oil is a food oil. Theirs is a supplement. They're completely different territories. Your competition is the cooking oils, not the fish oils, right? And I was like, oh yeah, we sort of lost track of that because we got into the argument, right? But the truth is that the same enzymes convert omega-6s and omega-3s. I said that before. And if you get the ratio between them right, both of them get converted. So the lack of conversion of omega-3s into fish oil was because people were not getting enough starting material, omega-3 starting material. And so that was being crowded out by so much omega-6 in the diet. Like 30-to-1 is like crazy. And then they called that an essential, they called it a functional essential fatty acid deficiency, which means you have them, but they can't do their job because they're being crowded out by too much of the other thing, because there's a competition between them, right? For
And by
enzyme
taking a lot of omega-3, I'm crowding out the omega-6.
If you do that, yeah.
Okay.
I've taking flax oil by itself as the only source of fat in the diet did that for me. And it's 4 times richer in omega-3 than omega-6. I became omega-6 deficient.
Okay.
On flax oil.
Okay.
So that's why we made the blend. You want to have some omega-6s in it. You want to get off the damaged omega-6s, but you want to do the omega-3s. They're the magic, they're the energy, they do all the good stuff, because most people don't get enough omega-3 in their diet.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the question, JW. So, I'm actually on your website, and I under the it's udoerasmus.com. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And I went to products. I only see the one product, Udo's Choice.
Yeah, the oil.
Yeah, I see the Udo's Choice, and then books by Udo Erasmus. Is there only one thing to choose from?
No, it's a long story. There was another website called udoschoice.com.
Yes.
And that got shut down because I wasn't running it. Somebody else was running it. And you go to Flora. There's some stuff going on in the company. I haven't been paid for a year and a half, and
Okay.
so there's some stuff going on. But the oil works, so I still promote it.
Okay.
And so you go to florahealth.com, and they have a US presence and a Canadian presence. And then you look for the oils on there, Udo's Choice. The enzymes are on there under the Flora label. The probiotics are there under the Flora label. Then I have a greens product that's under a Flora label. So that's where you go.
All right, but they'll all be Udo's Choice under that label. Is that correct?
No, only the oils are under Udo's Choice. They took Udo's Choice off the other products, even though they're my formulas. It's a long story. There's,
Yeah, we don't need to get into that, but
no,
this
I know.
this one. Well, I mean, I don't want. Yeah,
blame it on the pandemic.
Okay.
Or
so,
something.
all right, but the Udo's Choice 369 blend is something that you highly recommend. Is that a good way for people to start and kind of evaluate?
That's what I use. Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I use. You know, it's the least pricey one.
Okay.
And it does everything for me. I don't need the extra stuff in it.
All right, great. And with so you kind of talked about the hemp seeds, you know, and them being rancid. What are some of the visual and olfactory cues that might indicate that a seed oil has been damaged?
Well, if they're colorless, odorless, tasteless, that's what they do to all the oils. They don't taste like what they came from. They're all colorless, odorless, tasteless. They're in plastic bottles. They don't have a smell. Colorless, odorless, tasteless, like no smell, no color, no odor, right? Well, if they're colorless, odorless, tasteless, you know they've been processed heavily, because oils taste in some ways like the seeds and nuts they come from, right? That's all been taken out. If it doesn't say organic, it's probably has pesticides in it. If it doesn't say unrefined, it's been processed. If it's not in glass, it's usually processed. So, and literally, you know, where do you get oils made with health in mind? I'm in the Canadian Health Food Association Hall of Fame for starting the industry of making oils with health in mind, right? So this was my brainchild from getting poisoned by pesticides and then trying to figure out how to get healthy and getting stuck on oils because they were so contradictory. And I needed clear answers for my situation. So I was very motivated to understand all the confusion around oils in those days. So that's where that came from. And then there a bunch of other people learned from me. Some of them are now out of business. And nobody ever went into glass except me, because glass is more expensive. But from a health perspective and from a dedication to health perspective, glass glass has class, and plastic is spastic. Yeah.
I have a sneeze coming, so I'm trying to.
Oh, okay.
I just went away. So, so now, all right. So along that lines, and so it's not just glass; it's dark glass bottles. Is that correct?
Dark glass bottle. Yeah, we use dark glass bottles.
Nitrogen flushing.
They're not everything. Yeah, nitrogen flushing is common. Everybody does that, even in the plastic.
What is nitrogen flushing?
Well, nitrogen flushing, the headspace that is gas, that isn't oil. Well, that would be air, but what they do instead is they make it nitrogen, so there's no oxygen in there to make oil go rancid.
Okay.
So it's basically replacing the oxygen in the air with nitrogen out of a tank, because nitrogen doesn't react with oil, but oxygen will.
Okay.
And then we put a box around it to cut the light out, because when light hits oil, it makes free radicals, and then they have chain reactions, and they do damage to oil. And we don't want the damage. You know, the whole point is making oils with health in mind, because we're trying to support and enhance and recover health. And in order to do that, you have to do it the way nature would do it if you were eating fresh, whole, raw, organic, running around naked in the jungle. Right.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to have a question from the audience.
Yeah.
Margaret, go ahead and ask your question of Udo.
I would like to ask Udo, I've used your oils for years, and I'm 80 and I have lovely skin and hair and nails. Where can I source it to get the freshest? Would it be directly from Flora, or do I stay with Erewhon or Whole Foods and watch the expiration date? Where can I get? I'm kind of a purist, and I want to where I can get the freshest product.
Yeah, either way, our expiration date is good because of the care we took in both making and packaging the oil.
Okay.
I usually like to support the local stores.
Okay.
If you don't have a store near you or you're not getting what you need, then go direct. They'll ship it to you.
Okay, and I do freeze it. In other words, I put the one the oil I use every day, I put into your small Udo's bottle, and then I keep the 32 ounce in the packaging in the freezer.
Yeah, well, that's a good point you bring up. I buy it by the case. I have to pay for it too. I buy it by the case. I stick it in my freezer, freeze it solid. The
Yes.
oil shrinks when you freeze it, so you won't break the bottles.
Yes.
Water expands, you'd break the bottles. Oil
Yes.
shrinks, so I have to keep my oil frozen, and I take it out one bottle at a time and put the bottle that I'm using in the fridge.
Yes, that's worked for me for years.
Yeah.
Thanks for affirming that. Thank you for your outstanding lecture. I certainly enjoyed hearing these principles again. Thank you, Udo.
Thank you, Margaret.
And what are some common symptoms of omega-3 deficiency? What would you expect to actually feel or see in your body?
Low energy is one of the big ones because omega-3 is the highest energy molecule. It attracts oxygen, it increases oxygen metabolism, increases oxidation rate. That's where your energy comes from. Okay, so we did work with athletes and gave them a tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day, mixed in food over the course of the day. And then they did their sport to exhaustion. And within 30 days of starting the oil, their performance to exhaustion increased 40 to 60%. So we're talking about making energy. Brain function is better, less inflammation. Omega-3s are very powerfully anti-inflammatory, and the body makes other anti-inflammatory molecules out of them. I'm just thinking that, but they make everything literally because they give the cells more energy to do their work. So whether you're talking about a gland or an organ or a tissue, they will make that tissue do its job more effectively because they have more energy to do that. And then when it comes to like performance, we worked with marathon runners when we began. This is like 40 years ago now. And marathon runners used to be told to carb load before the race for 2 or 3 days. Carb load, but you can only carb load like about a pound of carbs, and they turn into glycogen, and they're stored in your liver and your muscles. And so when you run the race, when you carb load, after 20 miles, you run out of carbs. And then the runners would hit the wall, as they called it, and they'd have like no energy, and they would drag themselves the last 6 miles. And because when your carbs are burning, they turn off fat burning. And carbs do that because you need to burn the carbs first because they can be toxic. And there are no essential carbs. So carbs are actually the least important food from that perspective. And so what we did, we told people, no, you're doing it wrong. You need to carb deplete. You need to get your fat burning mechanism turned on. So when you run the race, you're burning fat the whole time. Because even if your body's 8% fat and you burn only half of it, and you weigh 154 pounds, you can run 300 miles on half of that fat that you have in your body. So you need the fat burning mechanism turned on because you need energy for 26 miles, not just for 20 miles. And of course, we were going completely against the stream, and not everybody followed us, but the people who did, they came back after and said, that was amazing. After I finished my marathon, I felt like I had the energy to run another one. Didn't run another one. And then the number of, the longest distance run in the United States was 156 miles, I think. That's like 6 marathons. Longest distance run in 24 hours. That was set by a guy who set that record. using Udo's oil, and he said it gave him 25% more stamina.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. That concludes our time. So I want to
Okay.
thank you so much. The 2 hours went very fast. So I really appreciate all of the information that you shared on both the oil as well as the health and connection with the self.
Yeah.
And if we can unmute the audience so they can share their appreciation.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Udo.
Happy end of
Thank
day.
you.
Thank you, Dr. Erasmus.
Bye, Nico. In order to get the VPN, I have